Welcome to today's episode of The Self-Led Leader. Today's episode might feel a little bit spicy, but it's one that I deeply believe in and something that we all need to hear today. By now, you've heard the phrase that you shouldn't compare yourself to others. Yes, this is a well-meaning phrase, but honestly, it's pretty incomplete because comparison really isn't the problem. It's how we use it and who we compare ourselves to that really either expands us or just crushes us. So today I'm going to flip the script on the narrative that comparison is bad and that comparison is the thief of joy and any other cliche that you've heard about comparison. I'm going to show you why comparison, when used intentionally, is actually one of the most powerful self-leadership tools that we have, and how your inner CEO can use it to make better, more aligned, more intelligent decisions. Let's get right into it. Welcome to The Self-Led Leader, a podcast for high performers who want to lead from alignment, not expectation. I'm Dr. Christina Ady, a social psychologist, and I'm here to help you lead with clarity, not chaos. This show is about what happens before the strategy, your mindset, your nervous system, the inner leadership that shapes everything you say and do. Because presence isn't about being loud, it's about being aligned. Let's get right into it. Now, let's start with some basic psychology. Social comparison is something that we all do, consciously and unconsciously. It starts all the way back in childhood. Even as kids, we compare ourselves to others. Who's wearing what? Who likes what? Who has the things that we want? It's biologically wired in us. It's how we calibrate ourselves in social environments. It's how we determine how we fit in, what we like, what we don't like, and who we fit in with. It starts in childhood and it continues all the way through the rest of our lives into old age. Social comparison doesn't stop. So hearing things like comparison is the thief of joy and you shouldn't compare yourself to others, there's a reason why it feels icky and cliche and a little bit silly. Because it is. Because no matter how well-intentioned you are, everyone will always continue to compare themselves to someone else. In psychology, there's a very famous theory by Leon Festinger called social comparison theory, and it really boils down to this core idea. We evaluate our own worth, our own status, and our own ability to achieve our goals by comparing ourselves to others. Now, here's an important distinction to make. There are two main types of comparison: upward comparison and downward comparison. And understanding this difference is crucial because it will give you the insights into why sometimes comparing yourself to others makes you feel pretty crummy and sometimes it doesn't. Now, upward social comparison is really comparing yourself to someone who you perceive as being ahead of you on whatever goal you determine. Maybe they're more fit than you. Maybe they have a better business than you. Maybe they're making more income than you are. Whatever topic or category or label you have selected, upward comparison is picking someone who is perceived to be better than you at that thing. Now, whenever you engage in upward comparison, whenever you are comparing yourself to someone that you think is further ahead, what ends up happening? Unsurprisingly, you feel worse about yourself. You feel like you're falling behind. You feel like you're not doing good enough. You feel like you should be further along. And that makes total sense because you are very fundamentally comparing yourself to someone who's already ahead of you. So you are already setting yourself up for failure to think that you are behind. That's just part of the nature of it. Now, the second main type of social comparison is called downward comparison. And this is when you are comparing yourself to someone who you perceive as being behind you on whatever category or label or target you have picked. So if you've picked physical fitness, there's someone who has more weight or less strength or whatever other category you've picked. Maybe they're making less income. Maybe their business isn't as big as yours. They are someone who's behind you. And because you are comparing yourself to someone that you have determined is behind you on this category, you feel like you are ahead. You feel like you're doing better than them. And so, can you see how fundamentally, depending on who you choose to compare yourself to, you are automatically putting yourself in a position to be feeling empowered and like you're doing well, or feeling like you're behind and need to run your wheels and hit the gas and catch up? That's the nature of social comparison that isn't talked about nearly enough. So when you hear generic advice like don't compare yourself to others, this advice assumes that comparison is harmful in its own. But really, what's harmful is the interpretation that we give the comparison. So avoiding comparison, avoiding doing things where you may naturally compare yourself, that isn't self-care. That isn't self-love. That isn't self-healing. Not always. It's often just avoidance. If you're a high achieving individual, if you're ambitious and you have goals that you want to work towards, you know your natural instinct is to compare yourself. It's to look for other people who have done the thing that you want to do. It's to look for other people who are doing the thing that you're doing, to see how you are doing. It's like an athlete running in a track race. You don't just put on blinders and run forward and hope you come first. You compare yourself to the other people in the race to gauge where you are in the standards, how you're doing, and whether you need to run a little bit faster or if you have a moment to catch your breath. If you were running a marathon and you thought you had the lead, you wouldn't just slow down and never look back to see how you're doing and assume you would still win first place. So when you understand this, you understand that your inner critic, your inner CEO, they will continue to analyze, they will continue to compare, and they will use that information to assess and realign you to where you think you are compared to where you would like to be. So fundamentally, comparison is not a bad thing. The bad part with comparison comes from not understanding how to use comparison strategically. And if you are comparing yourself to the wrong types of people in the wrong context, that is when comparison becomes harmful. So let's talk about 3 mistakes that most people are making when it comes to comparison. The first is really engaging in a type of distorted comparison. This is when you compare yourself to someone else's success without acknowledging that they are fundamentally further down in terms of time, effort, and resources than you are. So maybe you've just launched your business. Maybe you've just been promoted and you are comparing yourself to someone who has been doing that role for 5 or 10 years. And when you engage in this type of distorted comparison, when you are comparing your beginning to someone else's middle, or maybe even a little bit further than the middle, you are completely eliminating the context that matters, that makes the difference. You are making yourself feel bad and feel like you're losing momentum without acknowledging that important piece that you're not in the same position, you're not in the same boat. They are fundamentally in a different chapter of the book than you are. And so take a moment and ask yourself, or the next time that you find yourself comparing your leadership skills to a peer, to someone else at work, to someone else that you see online, ask yourself, are we really in the same boat? Are we really in the same chapter? Are they a good role model? Or am I intentionally or unintentionally excluding important pieces of information that will give this comparison a lot more meaning? Now, the second type of comparison mistake that a lot of people make is engaging in reflective comparison. And this is when you compare yourself to your past self. Now, this sounds like a good thing, and it can be. When you compare who you are today to who you used to be, this can be extremely powerful. This can help ground you. It can help bring gratitude. It can help you see and acknowledge the massive amounts of growth that you've had. If used intentionally, it can be super useful for building internal credibility and for acknowledging your wins and successes and adding to your confidence. But if you're comparing your current self to your past self and only looking at your flaws, only looking at your weaknesses, if you are continuing to look at who you used to be and bring it into the present moment, then you are going to continue perpetuating your perceived weaknesses over and over and over. And that will actually stint and hinder your growth. Now, the third type of mistake I see people making is engaging in aspirational comparison intentionally. And so this is when you really pick someone like the Gary Vee, the Layla or Alex Hermosis, the Tony Robbins, and you aim to be that sort of next level individual intentionally, but you sort of forget the missing pieces and the missing ingredients, and you tend to overlook the work that it took them to actually get there. It's like looking at someone's overnight success and completely, intentionally overlooking the fact that it took them 10, 20 years of hard work before they got to the point where they had overnight recognition. And so, if you're only looking at someone's success and not acknowledging all the work and the effort it took to get there, then the work that you're putting in, the effort that you are putting in, will feel that much harder. And rather than motivating you, rather than being like, yes, this is what it takes, instead it begins to hinder you. It begins to add to you losing motivation. And so, recognizing that how you are comparing yourself, the types of comparisons that you're making, is really what is contributing to how you are feeling about yourself. Because again, we all compare ourselves. We are all wired to compare ourselves to others. But the important thing is to recognize how you are doing it and learn to compare yourself to others intentionally and strategically. So, how do you start to learn to compare yourself to others strategically? Well, here are 3 questions that I want you to ask your inner CEO the next time that you find yourself comparing yourself to others. The next time you find yourself scrolling on Instagram, browsing Facebook updates, looking through your LinkedIn feed, and those inner thoughts pop up, and we all have them. Ask yourself, when you find yourself comparing yourself to someone else, is it jealousy? Is it lack of motivation? Is it disappointment? What is the first emotion that pops up for you when you are engaging in that moment in the comparison? What exactly is it about the person, the situation, the thing that they posted? What is it that made you stop, compare yourself, and feel that strong emotion? Start to identify those little moments. You see, those kinds of questions are uncomfortable to ask. And most people don't want to ask themselves those uncomfortable questions because sitting in that discomfort, taking the time and giving yourself the space to come up with the answers is hard. It's challenging. It takes a lot of self-reflection. It takes a lot of raw strength, confidence, and honesty to tell yourself, there are flaws in who I am. There are weaknesses that I'm identifying. There are things that I want for myself that I am not doing. And the reason I don't have them is my responsibility. That is hard. And not everyone is ready for that kind of radical honesty. But if you are the type of person, and I know you are because you're listening to this, if you're the type of person that has big goals that you feel like you are capable of achieving, if you are drawn to more ambitious events, businesses, goals, leadership things, you know that you have the potential. And so sitting with the discomfort, that is part of the process. Because if you don't take the time to really recognize why you're feeling disappointment, why you're feeling less than, why you're feeling the jealousy, why you feel like you're losing motivation to do the thing that you plan on doing because you saw someone else post about the success that they're having with it, if you don't take the time to really reflect on those uncomfortable questions, you will continue to make yourself small. You will continue to shrink away. You will continue to avoid the things that you know that you need to do because you feel less than from a post that you saw on social media. And here's the thing, we're all going to keep scrolling on social media. We're all going to keep seeing those posts. Are you going to continue to be triggered? Are you going to allow those social comparisons to hinder you and to stop your growth and to make you lose motivation? Or is it a little bit better for you long term to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations with yourself, to sit in the honesty of what you're feeling and experiencing, and to then begin to shift and change that? Which brings me to my second question. Ask yourself, based on what I am feeling, based on what I am thinking. What does this tell me about what I'm ready to change? Because when you ask yourself those uncomfortable questions, when you sit with the honest answers that come up, when you're able to recognize and acknowledge your weaknesses, that's when you begin to identify the things about yourself that need to change and the things about yourself that you are ready to change. And that is an extremely important place to be at. Because when you are honest and you understand what needs to change, and you have the motivation to begin to change it, well, that's a game changer in itself because now you can actually commit to doing the things that need to be done to experience the change that you want to experience. Because nothing changes if nothing changes, and you don't change simply through time itself. You have to be intentional about the change that you are making. And as an ambitious, high achieving individual, as someone who has big goals for yourself, you need to be intentional with the change that you are taking on. Because if you hope that the change will happen naturally, if you hope that you will just become the type of person on your own through sheer will and wishful thinking, I hate to break it to you, but that's not the way that it works. And so that brings me to my third question that you'll then ask yourself. What small step can I take today, ideally, to begin to bring me to that version of me that I would like to be? What's one small action I could commit to actually begin to change the things that I know I'm ready to change? And so I'm going to invite you to really take a look at those things that trigger you, those posts, those videos, those things you see on social media that you automatically compare yourself to and begin to feel less than, begin to feel triggered by, begin to lose your motivation and productivity over. Those posts, those emotions that you're feeling, those hold so much important information about what you actually think about yourself and what you actually want for yourself. And so if you are seeing a post, for example, of someone posting a video of themselves doing their 5 a.m. morning routine, and you get triggered and you get angry and you get upset, that's an indication that maybe deep down, there's a desire for you to have a 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. morning routine as well. Maybe you're craving some consistency and some structure and some systems for yourself that you know you're lacking and that you have had resistance to building. And so you've been living in chaotic mornings, knowing you want better, knowing you deserve better, knowing you need better to actually make the changes that you want to make. And so seeing that post is a reminder of the flaw, of the perceived weakness, of the thing that you know you need to change. And that's a blatant reminder in your face that triggers you. And so when you are scrolling on social media, at work, whatever the case, when you find yourself comparing yourself to others, be intentional and ask yourself, why am I making this comparison? What does this tell me about what I'm ready to change? And what's a small thing that I can do to actually commit to this change today? These three questions, especially when you follow through on them, are going to completely change the nature of the game of comparison for you. Because the truth is, most of us aren't even triggered by the things we see because we begin to feel less than. We're triggered by them because we know that we are disconnected from what we really want for ourselves and the goals that we have set. And so social comparison, when used wisely and intentionally, really begins to remind you of what is a priority for you, what is possible for you, and what you are capable of achieving. So don't avoid comparison. Strategize, curate it, use it intentionally. In psychology, there are a lot of theories around social comparison and how we begin to compare ourselves to others. And we are all social creatures. And really, we begin to compare ourselves from childhood, but we never stop comparing ourselves. And the thing is, we see comparison as a normal part of life. From childhood, fundamentally, everyone is influenced by so many people and so many examples that we almost stop seeing it. We almost stop seeing how much influence other people and other examples have over us, over our behaviors, over our beliefs, and really over the outcomes we see in our life. So most people are overlooking the fact that since childhood, We are conditioned to accept other people's beliefs, actions, ideas, behaviors as being influential on our lives. You see, as kids, you look at role models, primarily from your parents, maybe if you have older siblings, your guardians. As you get a little bit older, you start to hit school age, you see your teachers, your caregivers, the people that you spend the most amount of time with as your role models. As you continue to get older, you have your parents, your teachers, your friends, the people you spend a lot of time with. Then you also start having the shows that you watch, the music you listen to, the types of characters that you play with. Think of children growing up watching Disney movies or superhero movies. They are seeing these examples and interpreting them as role models. And we do this automatically and psychologically from a very young age. And so, role models are a natural, fundamental part of our lives. We stop thinking about it, it's just natural to us. And so, what I'm really going to challenge you to do and really to think about is to look at how many role models you have in your life, but role models that you didn't realize you're looking at as role models. This could be your partner, your close family members, your friends, maybe even your coworkers. Again, start by auditing the people that you spend a lot of time around. They are your role models because whatever behaviors you see, that's what you start to accept as the norm. Whatever actions, whatever beliefs, whatever habits they have, that's what you start to adopt for yourself. And so, social comparison isn't just limited to other people online or people that you see at work or your heroes and your role models that you aspire to be like. No, social comparison and role models is really, it hits so much closer to home than most people realize. And so audit your life, audit who you are spending your time with, audit who you are consuming. Start with your close family and friends. Are they good examples of who you'd like to be like? Are they good examples of how you'd like to live your life? Are they good examples of the type of role models that you would actually intentionally select for yourself? And if they're not, then be intentional about recognizing what is it about them that is them that you would like to politely decline for you. Because we are all like sponges. We all absorb information. Our psychology is always on. There's no off button for your mind. Even if you think there is or you would like there to be, your subconscious is always running. It's like the operating system of your computer. Even if you shut down your computer, the operating system is still there. It is still ready for you. Our minds are beautiful and complicated, and they absorb way more information than most people realize. And so continue to audit yourself, who you are spending your time with, and who you are consuming and comparing yourself to. Once you've audited your close family and friends, then be a little bit more intentional with who are you spending time with? Who are your acquaintances? Who are your colleagues? Who are your peers at work? What are the behaviors that they're doing that you're picking up on and copying and imitating without realizing? What are the things that they're doing well that you should compare yourself to and implement? What are they doing that you don't resonate with and that you don't want for yourself? Then go one layer outer and really compare who are you watching? What types of music are you listening to? What types of shows are you consuming? Who are you following on social media? Whose videos are you watching on YouTube? What podcasts are you consuming? All of this information affects you, your mindset, and how you feel about yourself. Because, like I said, social comparison is ongoing. It doesn't stop, it might just happen behind the scenes. And so, this is really where becoming strategic and intentional around comparison, around auditing what information you're consuming, about picking information that resonates with you, that imitates the goals that you have, that reinforces the values that you want to instill in yourself. This is the real game changer. And this is what most people overlook. So do the audit, be intentional, and ask yourself, what are my goals? What are my values? What are the behaviors that I want to reinforce in myself? And what are my weak points that I want to eliminate? What are the behaviors that I'm ready to let go of? What are the habits that just don't quite help me get to my goals? Because if I'm being completely honest with myself, they're actually helping me lose my motivation and decrease my productivity. And I no longer want to do that. When you can do this honestly and intentionally, even through the uncomfortable feelings, that is when the game begins to change for you. Because then, all of a sudden, instead of going through your day comparing yourself to others, comparing yourself to examples that maybe aren't that good, having individuals' behaviors, outcomes reinforce things that you don't actually want. Now, when you're intentional, when you're strategic, when you follow specific people who have the things that you want, when you are being intentional about including all the information, when you recognize the different types of comparison, when you see comparison as a checkpoint, as a way to see and verify how you're doing, as a way to just check in with yourself and your progress. Well, now rather than feeling less than, it's just additional information around, hey, I know I want this. And the fact that this person is achieving it is just another confirmation that I can achieve it too. But this is my reminder that I'm not doing the things that I know I should be doing to get this outcome. So, my friend, be intentional about who you are following, who you're spending your time with, whose mindset and behaviors and habits you are consuming. Curate it. Be strategic about it. Think of every other individual around you as a mirror that reflects back the types of things you'd like to see as in yourself and not as someone to measure yourself against. Because when you learn to compare yourself strategically, the way that you compare yourself changes. And more importantly, the way that you feel, the way that you show up, and the types of outcomes that you get change as well. And they change for the better. Now, if this episode hit home for you, if you feel like you're ready to stop overthinking, if you're ready to actually jump into working towards your goals strategically and making clear, confident decisions as the leader of your team and the leader and the inner CEO of your life, then I'm going to invite you to check out my 4-day coaching intensive. The link for it will be in the description. It's designed to help you work on one specific goal and get results so that you can get the ball rolling and the momentum going and actually make the desired changes that you've been craving. Like I said, the link is in the show notes in the description. And as always, if this episode supported you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or tag me on social media and let me know what your breakthrough was. I always love hearing what landed, what didn't, and clarifying the rest. So until next time, continue to lead yourself first because you are the CEO of your own life and everything else will follow. Take care. Bye.